Good evening and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series for anash.org. Question: am I allowed to use מעשר to pay for a ticket to be Lנחem, a childhood friend, a young father who just lost his wife? First of all, we have to know that you have to make a Kabbalah when you start giving מעשר, or even if you did not make this Kabbalah, you could make it now. That from now on, all the מעשר which I'm going to give, I could also give for any mitzvah. Because if you don't make this Achlota, then you have to give the מעשר for poor people and not for anything else. So the first thing, we have to make sure that we are talking in a way that a person made this Kabbalah, that he will give his מעשר for any mitzvah, not only for a poor person. If a person did make such a Kabbalah, so he is permitted to use this money for mitzvahs which is not mechuyev. That means he cannot use it for matonas lavyonim, he cannot use it for machzas shekel, he cannot buy a esrig with it, but mitzvahs which is not mechuyev to do. So the question is, could you use it to travel, be Lנחem, a friend, which Lנחem is also a mitzvah. Now let's see how to deal with it. In Shal Shivas Rigzaboisam, Yeredaya Simareshchov, he has a question: if a person is permitted to take from his מעשר money to buy a ticket because he wants to go travel to his Rebbe, his Rabbi Mivik, mit tzadikai emes. So he says, that's for sure, traveling to a Rebbe is a very big mitzvah. And it's one of the 630 mitzvahs, as the Rambam says in Perek Vov Melchas Dayas. It is a mitzvah's esse to connect, lehidabek bechachomim v'talmidayim, to connect to a tzaddik, to a Talmud Chacham, in order to learn from his Masen Tovim, and that's the mitzvah of a boy Sidbuk. To him you should connect. And he writes, you could be mater, you could be lenient to take money from מעשר if your whole kavanah is bilti l'Hashem lavadi. Only the whole kavanah, you have in mind only because you want to go to your Rebbe to learn Torah, learn Yiras Shemayim. And since learning to be a Yiras Shemayim is a mitzvah gedola, and it's the first thing even before all the mitzvahs, as it says in Pasuk, Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem, the first thing is Yiras Hashem. So that's for sure you could use it like you could use other mitzvahs and even before other mitzvahs, because that's before, the first thing you have to do is learn Yiras Shemayim. And since a person cannot go to anyone to learn Torah and get Yiras Shemayim, he has his Rebbe. So therefore, if a person wants to travel to his Rebbe, which is from the Tzadikei Emes, he stresses this twice, Tzadikei Emes, and since it says Chayechu Koidmin, your life comes before a life of a poor person, so yes, you could use it if Kol Kavanosa, his only mind is in order to be Mekabel Yiras Shemayim from the traveling to the Rebbe. But you have to make sure it's bilti l'Hashem lavade. This is his language. Now, not all the poskim agree fully with the Rigzaboisam, but at least we have a Rigzaboisam, which is one of the prominent poskim 100 years ago. In Shal Shivas B'Tzeil HaChochma, Chaylik Dalat Semakiv Samach Bais, he has a similar question: if a person could use מעשר money to travel to a chasana to be mesamay chosen v'kala. And he says like this: if the money would have gone to the chosen v'kala, that's one thing. That's a mitzvah. Simchas chosen v'kala, that's one thing. But over here, you don't want to be mesamay chosen v'kala with your money. You want basically to be mesamay chosen v'kala, which doesn't cost money. Only to get there, That costs money. And he's very skeptical if you could do it. And he says, since the mitzvah is not the traveling, which you're using the money, the mitzvah is simchas v'kala, it's very hard to be lenient that you should be able to take it from מעשר. And he goes even further. He says, who says that the chosen will really be b'simcha when you come? Of course you will be b'simcha. Every person which comes has a simcha, but that's not enough that you should be able to use it for מעשר. So although you want to go there, be misamayich, but not necessarily that the chosen in kala will be that b'simcha be'emes that you come. And you could also be misamayich chosen kala through today's day, through phone, through a video message or other things. So he's very skeptical that you should be able to use it for מעשר. But he finishes, if you are 100% sure that the chosen will really be happy, very happy that you come, because he asked you and he pushed you and pressured you a long time that you should come to his chasana, and you wouldn't be able to go if you don't take it for מעשר. He says, Kila hai v'ulai, maybe we could be lenient. So it's not easy to be Michael, to use this for expenses for Chosam V'Kala. So let's go now to this question. Go travel to be Menachem Oval, a friend. So it depends in a lot of things. First of all, depends where he lives. If he lives in a community which has a lot of frum people, a lot of friends, so you coming not necessarily will make it that much of a difference. You could call him up and bring him Menachem Oval. And it's not necessarily that you'll be able to, you are allowed to take it for a מעשר. But if a person, let's say, doesn't have that much of friends, or he lives in a community, a shliach, which doesn't have too much people who will come Menachem Oval, and you are very, very close, especially close to your friend, and you know that you're going to make the difference by coming and being Menachem Oval, especially when a person loses, when he's young. A young father loses a wife, which is a very devastating experience. So if you feel that you're going to make a really different in that situation by going Menachem Oval, you could, and your whole kavanah is l'shem shamayim, to do the mitzvah, then kila hai ve'ila, you could be lenient and use it for מעשר. But if not, it's very difficult to be Michael, to use it for a Moes מעשר, for going traveling, when the mitzvah is not the traveling, the mitzvah is the Menachem Oval. Question: is it okay to wear clothes with pictures of stars, moon, planet, etc.? What about for children? What about a costume? What about for pajamas? Is it okay to draw these images in general? Now the Torah writes in Parshas Yisroi, in the end of Parshas Yisroi, Lo yisasen iti. You should make things which is with me. And Chazal, in Masechtes Rosh Hashanah, Chov Dalet Amud Beis, says, you learn out from this, you should not make any objects which is in the heaven, it's in the sky. That means the sun, the moon, planets, stars, etc. You shouldn't make it. And Tosfos holds not only you shouldn't make it, even you shouldn't keep it. Even if you didn't make it, you shouldn't keep it. Now, Shulchan Aruch, Yeridaya Siman Kif Mem Aleph Sif Dalet, the Mechaber writes, V'tzires Chama Elevuna V'Kochovim, the shapes of the sun, the moon, stars, is also to make bind boilters, a raised picture, bind shekas, engraved picture. It is all, both of them are asr. Except if you want to make it in order to teach, to learn something, then it's mutar, even when it's raised. The Remo brings the das from the Tur b'shem his father the Rosh, And he says, that means if it's a public place, let's say in shul, if you make such a thing, since it's a rabbim, it's a public place, you could be more lenient because it's not chashoda. Because one of the chashash is, it will look like you're making this in order to bow to avodah zarah. Therefore, since b'shel rabbim there isn't any chashad, so b'shel rabbim in a shul, let's say, you could be lenient. The Maram Rottenberg, one of the Rishonim, the Rebbe of the Rosh, which is brought down in Toises Yima, in Yindalot Medalef, and is brought down in Darke Moshe, he speaks regarding the Machzoirim. They used to paint on it, draw on it pictures, and he says that since it's only a picture, it's a picture, although it's a colored picture, but it's still only a picture, and he says it's even better than engraved, because some poskim say if it is raised, it is aser; if it is engraved, it's mutar. So the Maram Rottenberg says that even if you hold that engraved is also aser, but if it is a picture, a drawing, it is even better than engraved, and for sure you could be lenient and keep or even draw such a pictures. And this is how the Taz, the Terezu of Paskins over there in Siman Kif Mem Aleph, Sifkot Yid Gimel, that if it is a drawing, it is better than if it's engraved, and there's no problem to make such a picture since it doesn't have any mamoshes. The Shach and the Kids Kesev disagrees with the Tirezuv, but the Tirezuv is Michael. But in Rambam, we look at the Rambam, and the Rambam writes clearly even colored pictures is also a problem. It's brought down in Pesach Shiva over there, Sifkut Ches, that according from the Lashon Rambam, is even pictures will be a problem. And this is also how the Chachmas Odom Paskins in Klal Pei as High, which he quote, it's also to make a picture of the sun, the moon, stars, all of the objects which are in heaven, and it's also even to paint it and color it with color. So we have poskim which are very machmar, even when it comes to painting, coloring. For the other hand, we have a Terezuv, which the Terezuv is more lenient. Then the Kids Kesev disagrees with the Terezuv. So Lamaisa, it is kedai to be machmer, since we have a lot of poskim, we have a Rambam, which say that even making a colored one, a colored picture, if it's not to teach someone, to learn something, it is to make a picture, then you should be machmer, and you should not make even a painting. Even though, according to some poskim, it's better than engraved, and even by engraved, there are poskim which are matter, but most of the poskim do not make a chilik, a difference between engraved or raised. And some poskim say that making a picture is not better than engraved. So therefore, like it for sure, you should be a machmar and not make designs, this kind of things on clothing or even on pictures. Ladina, if a person bought such a picture, or he bought, let's say, pajamas or clothing which has this thing, he does not have to throw it away. But it's not kedai to purchase lekitchila, anything which has these kind of pictures, these kind of designs. And that will also go for children, because even for children, you have to be mechanach with these things which adult is, and you shouldn't buy clothing which has a sun and the moon, stars, etc. And the same will go also to costumes and to pajamas. All those things is not kedai to purchase. If you have it, you don't have to throw it away, but don't purchase it to begin with. Following this question, what about wearing earrings or jewelry in the shape of stars, moon, planet, and sun? Now this is asar l'chol hadayas, because since this is a raised picture, it is a jewelry which has in the shape of the sun, of the moon, of stars, then you have to be machmer, and that's asar l'chol hadayas, and you shouldn't buy it, and even if you have it, you should or sell it or give it away for some non-Jew, but do not purchase or make such a things, because that's boltas, in boltas l'chol hadayas, it's an osar. Question. You mentioned in a previous year which age girls were permitted for kol isha. How about hearing one's close relative, like a mother or daughter? Are you permitted to hear their voice singing? And the answer is yes. If it's not by davening or by reciting Krishma, a person is permitted to hear and listen to his mother or daughter singing. When it comes to by davening, reciting Kriya Shema or learning, that's already a problem. The Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch, Siman Ayin Hai, Sivov, a voice, singing voice of a lady, married or not married, even your own wife, is a erva, and you cannot listen to it while you are reciting Kriya Shema, or while you are davening, or while you are learning Torah. But the voice, when she's talking, since you're accustomed to it, it's not an erva, even from a lady which is not your close relative. That means you could listen to someone else talking. And the Alter Rebbe finishes, even the voice of your close relative, which you are permitted to listen, if it is in a way that you could not your own hear it, because you are davening with so kavanah, with so dvaikes, and you don't hear it, and you don't realize that she's singing, then it's mutar. So, again, a koil singing from a lady is a erva. Even if it's your wife, even if it's your mother or your daughter, although regularly, as we mentioned before, you are permitted to hear and listen to their voice even when they sing, but when it comes to davening or learning Torah or reciting Krishma, it's asar. So the question is, from what age is Yudora asar to sing while you are davening? So the Poiskim say give an age 11 years old. There's in the Shulchan Shloima, the old Shulchan Shloima, not the Shloima Zalman, the old one, in Siman Ayin Hai, Siv Gimel, writes when your daughter is 11 years old, then you cannot hear her voice anymore while you're listening to reciting Krishma and learning Torah. And this is also how the Divrei Yatziv and Even Ezer Siman Amud Vuf Os Zayin writes that by 11 years old you should stop listening to your child when you're saying Krishma. Now again, if you are saying it with Vaikas and basically you are not hearing what that she's singing, it's not a problem. But if you do hear when she's singing, once your daughter turns 11, you should be machmer and not listen. I would say that even by 10 years old, because it has to do with maturity, and since today's day, some, as we mentioned in the previous shiurim, some girls get mature by 10, it is kedai even by 10 years old to stop listening. But again, at least by 11 years old, we've seen the poiskim already, you should stop listening to their voice. Just to sum it up, if you are by reciting Krishma or davening or learning Torah, then any voice of a lady is also to hear. Even your close relative, your mother, your wife, and your daughter when she is about 10, 11 years old. And that's even your close relative, because it's a middle of davening. If it's not by davening, then your daughter, you could listen, even when she's an adult. Your mother, you could listen. And all other ladies, you cannot listen to their voice because it's a erva. Okay, thank you for joining us, and please join us again next week and send in your questions to inbox@anash.org. Good night and have a wonderful week.